In the closing decades of the Renaissance, which you learned about in your world history class, we saw the beginning of the age of exploration and colonization. Instigated by the Old World, that is, here in Europe, people from 4 continents, including Africa and the Americas, collided, resulting in the redistribution of the world's population and a commercial explosion. What were these Europeans looking for? What caused them to leave their own continent and voyage across an unknown ocean? We can argue that it starts with this guy right here. And if you'd recognize him as Christopher Columbus, you'd be correct. Columbus wanted to find a western passage to Asia. He specifically was looking for a way to bypass the Middle East for trading with China and the East Indies. Now, Columbus wanted to get here. And you can see by going from there to there, he would have to cross the Middle East. Well, this area was controlled by the Muslims, and the empires charged tremendous fees to get through. So in order to gain riches, Columbus felt that he could get here by traveling west, that direction. However, the theory is sound, but he had no idea that there were 2 continents and an entire other ocean in the way. So in the end, when he landed right here in the West Indies, he was completely lost. Oops! He and others continued to explore to find a way through these continents, but failed. However, the Europeans quickly realized there was a great deal that these continents had to offer, which led to further exploration and colonization. The basic drives can be summed up in what we call the 3 G's of exploration. Nations sought riches of gold. This means more than just gold itself. Other precious metals like silver could be found, but more importantly, the real money came through trade, and this growth of commercial expansion was huge to the nations of Europe. Nations also wanted to spread Christianity, their official religion. Believing that the people they found were godless, they felt much better about themselves in conquering and taking their stuff when they felt they were saving these individuals and these Indian souls from eternal damnation. The final G is glory, wishing to establish large empires powerful in the New World. Early European exploration and colonization resulted in the redistribution of the world's populations as millions of people from Europe and Africa voluntarily and involuntarily moved to the New World. Now, 2 key words we see there are voluntary and involuntarily. The voluntary migrants were from Europe. They were the ones who came mostly seeking better lives. The involuntary migrants came from Africa, and you should recognize that there will be millions of slaves transported from Africa to the New World to serve as cheap and disposable labor for the next several centuries. Exploration and colonization initiated or started a worldwide commercial expansion as agricultural products were exchanged between the Americas and Europe. What we call the Columbian Exchange refers to the raw materials and products that were traded between the Old World and the New World. Of course, looking at this diagram, we can see that not everything was intentional or beneficial. Right down here, we see that diseases also were part of this Columbian Exchange, and disease would eventually devastate many of the native populations. So what about those people who were here in the Americas first? Christopher Columbus named the indigenous people Indians because he thought he was close to India when he first landed in the Caribbean islands. The exploration and settlements of the English in the American colonies and the Spanish in the Caribbean, Central America, and South America often led to violent conflicts with the American Indians. The Indians lost their traditional territories and fell victim to diseases carried from Europe. Diseases for which they had not developed immunities proved absolutely devastating to their populations. Violence and misunderstanding dominated many of the interactions between the Europeans and the Indians. A general exception, though, was the French. By contrast, their exploration of Canada did not lead to large-scale immigration from France. The French believed they could best use access to the new territory as a source of trade, which engaged the American Indians. So by only manning outposts for trade, the Indians were not as threatened. So relations with the native peoples were often more cooperative with the French and the Indians than the other European empires. Now, in time, colonization will lead to ideas of representative government and religious tolerance. Now, that's going to be over several centuries, and that would inspire similar transformations in other parts of the world. History is a matter of cause and effect. The most important question to be able to answer is not what, but it will be why. Why did things happen? So when we take a look at the causes, traders wanted new and better trade routes. Explorers were in search of adventure, of glory, and riches. The Spanish wanted to spread Christianity, and increase in knowledge is going to spark curiosity about the rest of the world. This is all going to lead to exploration and eventually colonization in the Americas. So the outcomes or the effects will be European settlements are founded, trade and mercantilism grows, European nations are going to compete for colonies, conflicts with the Native Americans will develop, slavery will be introduced in the Americas, and three cultures will clash in this collision.